Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're hearing a report that the Hawks plan to keep the number one pick. We've known this. This is nothing new. My coworker Michael Scotto reported that the day after the lottery. And when I was at the lottery, I fortunately second year going to the NBA draft combine as a media member, but first year attending the lottery. Last year I didn't attend the lottery as I was graduating college. So I had to go do the ceremony as my parents wanted pictures. However, the Hawks plan to keep the number one pick. I've known this. The reason why I know this is I floated that idea out amongst colleagues, and one of them turned to me and said, "You don't trade the number one pick unless you have a surefire, bona fide star that you know is kind of either that you're gonna go all in for a Kawhi Leonard type situation, or you are trading for, again, the Kevin Love-esque, those types of situations, which are a dime a dozen. As when you trade the number one pick, regardless of what the draft is categorized. And I know someone's going to bring up, well, the Celtics traded back to get Jason Tatum. Well, that's because they knew they could. That's different. And I'm just, that's an outlier. What you don't do is, if you were to trade the number one pick for a player, there's a chance that player gets hurt or doesn't have the impact. Or, there's a plethora of things. While getting a young guy, he's on a cheap deal. You don't have to worry about money because he's on a set, fixed contract. Now, this report is coming today from ESPN, and the Hawks do not plan to trade the number one pick. Landry Fields said Monday, quote, "I think we're really excited about the draft, and the more that we uncover, we go, great. I'm glad we have the number one. I keep joking around I'm not giving it back. So I think we're really in a good position here. I'm excited about it, frankly." Now, I would say a week ago it was wider than it is now. The board is definitely shaping up, tearing itself out. We as a group look at a ton of different scenarios. Like, if you keep the pick, you try to get back into the draft. With where we are right now, we'll pick one. We're planning on picking one. End quote. Landry Fields talking about if they had narrowed down their number one option. We have an NBA draft predictor on Hoops Hype. Go check that out. So at Hoops Hype, from the intel I've gotten, they're taking it. This isn't just from Hoops Hype. When I was in Treviso, I was with some people and we talked, and it seems, and they had talked with Landry, and it seems they're going to take Zachary Rissache. If you've been following the channel, you would know I've talked about it in depth. We have other videos about it. Go just type Hawks SEO and they'll come up. I literally did a why they'll draft Zachary Rissache video, but I have said repeatedly, even though I am aware Alex Sarr does have a higher boom to bust ratio. However, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Brandon Miller last year was, quote, the 6'8" archetype at the combo forward position or swingman guy who could play the 2, 3, 4, arguably, that everybody wants with athleticism and ability to be a two-way player. Alex Sarr is that in terms of a front court player who's 7'1", who arguably can play the 4 or 5, can guard 2 through 5, and can maybe be a 3-level scorer, can put the ball on the deck. We've all seen it. We've all heard it. I've been saying it for all year now. He is best case scenario an Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr. The best case scenario is he's a defensive player of the year guy who's a 3-and-D. Jaren Jackson Jr., not the best rebounder. I don't think he could prove me wrong, but his positioning and his style of play doesn't tend itself to be a good rebounding player, similar to Jaren Jackson. And so if he isn't the offensive player that Jaren Jackson Jr. is in terms of a 3-point scorer, he might be closer to being the offensive player and defensive player that Evan Mobley is currently, which is maybe a little bit lower floor, lower tier than Jaren Jackson Jr. is, which is kind of a guy who can guard 2 through 5, scores primarily 5 feet within the basket, lob threat, maybe does a little dribble handoffs, passes out the elbow and off the and down in the low post, and is primarily a defensive player. Will be like an all defensive. That's like the low ceiling. Now the floor is he's just a rotational bench player, and he's closer to what his brother is, which if his brother's recovering from a ruptured Achilles on a 2-way with the Oklahoma City Thunder, just more of a typical big, not as good as rebounding. And yeah. However, Zachary Rissache, and the thing with Alex Sarr is the Hawks are in a precarious, or I guess it wouldn't be precarious because I guess it would be precarious because precarious is the right word. Because either way, they're in a unique position because they're a team that's trying to compete and contend. And I don't think they're going to trade Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. They do not control their picks. You don't rebuild when you can't control your future. We see that right now. You turn into the Brooklyn Nets. The Hawks don't want to be the Brooklyn Nets. You rather just ride out DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and try to figure it out. They believe Jalen Johnson's an all-star. Drafting Alex Sarr means Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, that it becomes an awkward fit there. You're already going to be trading Clint Capella and DeAndre Hunter. Putting Zachary Rissache, he is a guy who, I've said it before, he's more of a Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. I've heard people compare him to Harrison Barnes. He's kind of a Harrison Barnes type player. And he'll be able to give you 3-and-D, a little bit of rebounding from day one. So he fits perfectly between Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu. Boom. If they were to take Donovan Clingan, it's because they don't believe Onyeka Okongwu can be the true center. Trae, Clint Capella, you have a rotation of 24 minutes a night of each of Okongwu and Clingan there. That's also possible. I personally wouldn't do that. I just think Clingan, I love Clingan, but he's just a bigger, longer, more mobile version of Jakob Poeltl, which is fine, but it's not what you need right now. Getting Rissache allows you to trade DeAndre Hunter. If you get Clingan, then who are you replacing DeAndre Hunter with? You have your 6-man in Bogdanovich. You can use AJ Griffin, I guess, as salary filler, trade chip, whatever value he has. Kobe Buffkin, backup point guard combo, backup combo guard, as well as Bogdan's swingman. You have whatever you want to do with Sadiq Bey if you want to bring him back. You still have Bruno Fernando and Garrison Matthews, and you can go out maybe bring a free agent in. A couple free agents to help you round out the roster, but I think there is a solid way. You got to keep the number 1 pick. There's no way you go out and you do something foolish. There's no trade out there. There's no trade. I'm sorry, guys.